Hey, what's up guys? Guardian here, coming to you guys with a brand new video today, and today we're going to be going over my premium blaster deck. So yeah, we've got another premium deck to show. I did Alfred last time, so going to give an update to blasters, but as you can see, we have MLB, Majesty Lord Blaster himself. We're not fully relying on Messianic this time, but we are still playing Messianic in the deck, as you can see here. So the way I went about making this deck was that I wanted to integrate Majesty Lord, whilst also maintaining the funness of Messianic as well. And the cool thing is that the new Stride unit, Crystaluster, it can actually be used with both of them, since he takes the skills of both and can benefit from both effects. So that's pretty cool. So it was pretty interesting to try sort of build a deck that not only is in conjunction with Majesty Lord, but also Messianic, and trying to balance them both out. Since we need a good amount of blasters in the deck, but we also need to maintain consistency for MLB himself. So, yeah. So without further ado, we'll get into the deck and I'll show you guys what I'm playing. Now, I want to give a caution here, is that this deck has had no testing at all. I've literally not played this deck for one game. I've literally built it off of theory, and I feel like the deck should work. But if anyone has any suggestions for it, feel free to mention it in the comment section. But I feel like this is a strong start, and any edits I need to do, I can always do in the future. So yeah, to start with, we've of course got the 4 Majesty Lord Blaster. I'm with a 4 of him just because he's the better one of the Blaster grade 3s, obviously. He's just much more consistent and powerful, giving you the extra drive check, the crits, the power. It's just all around great. And of course, the main thing about him is that he's generating those force markers, which is one of the things that Alfred kind of suffers with, is that in order for Alfred to get those markers, it needs to ride consistently over and over again, or use its Tarners over and over again. Whereas with MLB, you literally just have to, ride into it, attack, put 2 reguards in the soul, and you get 2 force markers. So it opens itself up more to a lot more power plays and doing, some more shenanigan plays with like Light and Dark Llew with your multi attacks. So it's really solid, and I think it's like just the best baseline that we have for a blaster, for a blaster themed deck. And also being able to get that power increase to make your defensive turns a bit better as well. So survivability is just better with him as well. And not to mention, but obviously he's a blaster, for our Messianic to use as well. So we can always use the extra copies of these on the rear guard to help benefit towards Messianic, if that is something that we want to go with. But yeah, I feel like the Majesty Lord himself, I can't just say MLB because there's 2 of them now. But yeah, Majesty Lord, I feel like it's just the more, solid one. He's the stronger one, right? But saying that, we are still playing the 3 copies of Messianic Lord Blaster. So Messianic, I still wanted to play him, but I didn't want to fully devote the deck to him. I feel like he's a cool gimmick, if that, but if anything, in terms of value, he's a blaster with a force marker, 13k base. So that's, good enough to work with, right? And the cool thing as well is that something that's really funny with Crystaluster is that because you're getting the triple drive being a G unit, and you're also getting the skills from Messianic, is that when you're doing the drive checks, you will have 3 chances to put blasters onto the field and get the multiple crits going. So you actually get an additional drive check combining the Crystaluster with Messianic Lord skill. So that's actually pretty funny. But yeah, he's just he's an alternative win con for the deck. But like I said, the very least, he's a blaster with a force marker, 13k base, which is fine enough as is. And then the last grade 3 we're playing is going to be 2 Exceed. I feel like Exceed's still good in the deck, just because when you stride a saver unit on him, like Gancelot for example, you can search a deck for a Blaster Blade named card and add it to your hand. A card with Blaster Blade in its card name. So the cool thing is that you can actually go search another copy of himself to set yourself up for another stride on your next turn, if that is something you want to go with. So he's a nice backup ride if you are going to be going into the stride for him to get that search. But by all means, if you have the Exceed already in hand, you can also just search the regular Blaster Blade as well. So you've got search targets, and of course, Gancelot being a saver unit gives him the ability to be used as well. But besides from that, again, another blaster name for Messianic. I will say that pretty much for all the blaster cards, essentially. But he's also got a really nice useful retire skill, being that you can counterblast on Vanguard to retire a grade 1 or greater, which is not too bad. Spot removal is something that blasters can do really well, and having the different variety of retires is also pretty solid as well. So that's the foundation of like the grade 3 bases I wanted to go with. I feel like these are the most relevant ones for like this sort of a style of deck. And I do feel like the XC do have value, being the extra names, and there's also another reason as well, which I'll get to in a second. So going for the grade 2s here, we of course have the star himself. We have 4 Blaster Blade. Yeah, sticking with 4 of him. Now, the reason I went for... this is the weird part, is that I'm only going for 3 Blaster Dark. Now, with Blaster Dark, I feel like he's just not as good in terms of like late game potential. Blaster Blade gives you that, choice retire, whereas Blaster Dark is just your opponent chooses something to retire. But Blaster Dark is really strong for the ride, but that's about it. And the problem with that, though, is that we have Wingal Brave in the deck, and I'm talking about the original Wingal Brave, the starter. And because we have some blasters as well in the grade 1 lineup, we can actually just search the Blaster Dark if we do want it for a ride target, if we haven't opened it with it. But the other reason is that we kind of need room in the deck to also fit other techie cards that I feel like just work well in conjunction with the blasters. And you might think, oh, well, you need 4 of each of them for MLB. I could see why. Like I said, this is based on theory. But the reason I want to go for 3 Blaster Dark is basically just because of ratios of other cards. But you could probably take something else out for the 4th one, but we'll get to that in a bit. But I'm playing 3 copies of Light and Dark Llew. This is for your multi-attack. So the really cool thing is that if you have Floral, Paladin, Flogal, or Barcgal boosting it, you can counterblast 1, put it into your soul, and then call a grade 2 blaster from your deck. So the cool thing obviously is that with MLB, you're going to be generating those force markers, and then you can attack with the Llew with some huge power, and then get another call on the markers, and then attack again with it. It's really, really cool. And we also have Flogal in the deck as well to do restanding shenanigans with Blaster Blade, which is why he's a 4 of, which is why I went that way, because I just think he's more important. And also because we have Barcgal in the deck, which is a countercharger. So that's another reason to why I feel like Blaster Blade's just got more value to him overall in this deck. But yeah, I went for 3 Light and Dark Llew. Now, you could take the next card out and put in a 4th Dark and a 4th Llew if you want to. But I decided to go with 2 copies of Livarot. And the reason for this is that I wanted players to be able to do if I'm getting damage denied. So one thing that Livarot provides you is the ability to search pieces that you need, like the Dark or the Blade, depending on which one you need, just by Soul Blasting instead. So if you're getting damage denied, you still have plays that you can do. So you can't just fully rely on Light and Dark Llew to search you the blaster that you want to line up with a Majesty Lord. But you instead have a play with Livarot to just Soul Blast instead to go get that piece that you're missing for your plays. So that's kind of the decision making I was making there, is that I wanted lines of play that I could still make outside of counterblasting, but I do feel like Llew provides the deck with just more, how would you say, like just more multi-attacking potential, right? Because the problem with Livarot is that he can only work from hand. So when he's plays from hand, he gets the skill. Which doesn't really work that well in this deck, since a lot of the stuff you're either calling it from the deck or whatever. Even with like your Twin Sword G unit, this unit calls it from the deck, so this wouldn't really work in conjunction with Livarot. But I still feel like Livarot is a necessary piece just so that you can get around the damage deny game. But like I said, if you don't want to play this and you want to play the 4th Llew and Dark, you can do that, but you just have to be open to being damage denied as all, which, is an unfortunate thing, but that can happen. And then the last grade 2 is something that I really wanted to try fit into this deck. Now, you could drop this down to 1, but I'm playing 2 copies of Rising Knight Belta. Now, this is a really cool card. It actually works pretty well in the deck. So the card says, at the end of the battle that it attacked a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and return any number of cards of Blaster in their card name from your rear guard or your drop zone to your deck, and then shuffle. If you returned a total of 3 cards, put this unit into your soul, and then draw 2 cards. So this card really reminds me of like Loading Angel, I believe it was called, from like set 5. And it's just solid because you can line this up in so many ways. Now, yeah, you do need 3 blasters to put back into your deck, but that's kind of okay, right? Because since we're playing a plethora of blasters anyway in the deck, that's why I'm playing so many like blaster grade 3s. is that we can potentially recycle these cards for a couple of reasons, right? So one reason is that sometimes we might run out of names for Messianic to use, and having that recyclability just makes it more of a sure thing that we can go for the Messianic player if it's something that we can go for. But the other thing is that the ability to return Rias and Blaster drop zone units to your deck, and then drawing cards, this essentially builds your hand back up after going for an aggro turn. So one thing I really like is that you can go for like the Twin Sword player, go for some multi attacks, and then when this attacks, you just Soul Blast, put stuff back into the deck, put at least 3 blasters in, and then this goes into Soul, and then you're drawing 2 cards, right? So you got your attacks off, but you also rebuilt your hand back up as well, right? So that's really, really cool. Now, it does cost a Soul Blast, which is, it's a good and a bad thing, right? Because you need to keep your Blade in your Dark and your Soul for your Majesty Lord. And we don't really have like a consistent way of generating Soul in the deck outside of like MLB, like just putting Reguards into your Soul, I suppose. But it gets a bit awkward, right? Because you can only do that if you're staying on MLB or if you go into your Dragon. So you need to line it up properly in terms of when you're actually going to be, generating that Soul with MLB or going into other options in the G zone, like your Twin Sword, right? So it really depends on what you have available in terms of resources, but I feel like this is a really solid card for the deck, just because it gives you that draw power to build hand size, and it takes Reguards off your board. So if you're going against like a control matchup, that could be an option that could just be better for you in the long run, right? So, and like I said, it's a grade 2 as well, so it's searchable through your Twin Sword, and it's just a really great extender, I feel, to give the deck a bit more oomph, a bit more power, right? Now, like I said, you could take one of these out if you wanted to, because the problem with me is that I don't like the idea of running like such a nice techie card like this, and then it getting damage checked, right? I like this line of play being available, so I wanted to play 2, but if you want to take one out to maybe put like the 4th Dark, the 4th Light and Dark Llew, or maybe another Livarot, or whatever you want to do, go for it. But yeah, like I said, I feel like 2 of this is just nice. It gives you that line of play available if you want to go for it. So yeah, that's sort of like the cool sort of techie card that I feel like works pretty well in this deck. And also a really fun thing is that since you're using your blasters for your grade 3, like, striding, you can use all of these for like stride fodder. You're essentially filling the drop zone back up with blasters to cycle back into the deck with your Belta. So again, the synergy, I feel like that's just really, really cool. And the fact that it is a Soul Blast means that they can't play around it, right? It's not like you can't damage deny this. If I have it set up, I can just go for it, right? So that's really cool. Now, when you do have your damage, like when you actually do have damage to, counterblast with, you want to make sure you can preserve it and you reuse it whenever you can. So we have our 4 blasted Barcgal, Blaster Friend Barcgal. Like I said, you want to make sure you got your 4 Blaster Blades with this, because it's a countercharging engine, right? It's also a piece that you need for your Light and Dark Llew to go off, and it's also a blaster name, so it can trigger off your Wingal Brave starter, which is really, really cool. So yeah, it's just a really good piece. Don't really see any reason not to play 4 of it, to be honest. So there we go. Then we are also playing 3 of the new Wingal Brave, the V-Series Wingal Brave. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's not amazing, but I feel like it's good in the deck, right? It's a Vanoria skill. It gives you on-hit pressure. I suppose the only downside to it is that it's not Blaster, right? But I mean, passing up basically a better Wingal Youth, like if you remember Wingal Youth from the G era, then I mean, this just outclasses it by a mile, right? So yeah, I don't see a reason not to play it. We can only play 3 of it though, because you can only have 4 cards of the same name in the deck. So we have the old school Wingal Brave and the new one, so that's kind of cute, but whatever. But yeah, it's a searcher for your blasters, and when you get the on-hit going, it's just really, really solid, and I feel like it would be silly to pass this up, right? Such a nice, consistent card, right? And then we have some one-ofs here. So some one-ofs, I went for 1 copy of Earina, so this is just so I have access to the Merrin player for the G-Guard, right? I mean, we all know this by now. But the reason I'm only going for 1 of it is that I didn't want to fully devote myself to making sure that it was there, because by running two of these, it means that I can't run other Sentinels. I can only run like two other Sentinel cards, right? And I wanted to play some draw PGs in the deck for the draw power and also the actual perfect guard aspect of it. So I feel like just playing one of it is fair enough. At least the play's there if I can go for it, but I'm not like fully like trying to expect it, right? I much prefer having the draws in the deck with it. The reason I went for two of this in the Alfred deck though is because I felt like with Alfred, you were much more prone. Like you wanted to go more for crits in the Alfred deck. I feel because that's the way Alfred kind of works. Is that you want to go heavy on the crits. So you kind of needed the extra room for the crits, but then you have to sacrifice defensive aspects in that regard. So yeah, it made sense to run the two Earina in that deck, just because you can just use your heal triggers to get a PG when you need it, right, to live. But in this deck, I feel like it's a bit more well-rounded, and you've got the draw PGs on the deck with it, so it's not a complete reliance, right? So I feel like one of that's fine. And then I'm just playing one of each of the other blasters. Yeah, so we have Dagger and Javelin. These are the only ones that I decided to play. I know that there's like a Laura unit that you can play, like an old Laura blaster, but I feel like Dagger and Javelin were just the better ones. The 10k bases, 10k shields, 8k base. Yeah, I mean, I don't really feel like you need to play more than one of each of these, and also there's no room to put more in the deck. But I feel like with the recycling of Belta, that's not too much of an issue. And like I said, one of the things I actually like a lot about the grade ones is that all of these are really great ride targets. Like all of these are good in some aspect because you got Blaster for Wingal Brave, the starter. You've got Wingal Brave itself, which is Vanguard. You've got Earina, which this is the worst ride, but you're still getting something out of it with the filter. And then you've got these two, which are blaster names as well, which also work with your Wingal Brave. So yeah, the grade ones are solid, I feel. There are 10 of them in total. So yeah, you kind of need to cut back a little bit on them, but it shouldn't matter in the long run because since you're getting the force markers from Majesty Lord, the force markers are pretty much acting like your boosters in that regard. So yeah, it's there, but yeah, it is what it is. So we have the grade zeros. Last but not least, we have Wingal Brave. I still feel like it's too good to pass up. You could play the V series starters if you want to, but I'm still playing this on a blaster deck, especially this sort of build where you're playing the Majesty Lord and the Messianic. I just want as much consistency as possible, and just searching the correct blaster that I need is really, really important. So we're playing the old school one copy of Wingal Brave. And then for triggers, we have the four Paladin Floral. I did almost cut this down to 3. Don't ask why, but yeah, I decided to put it back to 4 just because you can't search this card in the deck, unlike Alfred where you can use LaRousse to get it, because it's a high beast. In this deck, you don't have that leisure, so I feel like you kind of need to play a 4 regardless. The reason I was thinking about cutting it to 3 was that I didn't want it to be a full-on reliance, right? But I feel like with it being an alternative win con, it kind of proves itself to be a 4 of. And also, it's like one of the only triggers that we have. Like, I don't know if other triggers can do this, but it's one of the only crits that I know where it can actually shuffle itself back into the deck, right? Which I feel like is just crazy, right? So if you see a lot of crits in the early game, it's like, all right, I'll just shuffle this back in the deck, get some multi-attacks going. It's great, right? And yeah, you use it to boost with your light and dark Llews as well. So yeah, 4 Paladin Fogel, really, really solid. Got to play 4 of those, in my opinion. Then we're playing the 3 Stride Fodder crits, the Sentinel Sentflare Dragon, Dracokid, sorry. Yeah, I feel like 3's fine. We're playing 9 grade 3s in the deck, so I don't feel like we need a full playset of this. You could cut it down, maybe, but I feel like 3's fine, right? And also, since you do sometimes want to use your other blasters for like rearguard or building the field up, I feel like having 3 of this is fine, right? It just adds more consistency to making sure that you can stride when you need to. So that's that. And then we just have the 2 Eagle. Yeah. So the reason I thought about dropping this to 3 was that I wanted to bump another Eagle in so that I had more boosters available for like if I wanted to go for like my twin sword, for example, I'd have more boosters available to actually use his skill, since you do need a booster. But yeah, I feel like, you got the 10 grade ones, you've got the starter technically. Like, if this doesn't go off, you can still use it as a booster for your twin sword, which is fine. And then you've got this as well, which you can just call down as well, so that's pretty fine as well. So that is it for the crits at least. Then we have the 3 draw PG. So like I said, I did want to play some draws in the deck just so we can get to the pieces that we want to a bit better. And yeah, it's a PG as well, so there it is. Can't really say much else about that, but of course freeing up the grade 1 slots as well. And then we have our 4 heals to finish the main deck up. So we are 20 minutes into the video and I still haven't gone through the G-Zone, so I'm going to go through this a bit faster, right? So we have the 3 copies of Crystaluster Dragon. Yep, solid card. Takes the skills of your grade 3 Vanguard, your heart card. So it works really, really well with your Majesty Lord and your Messianic. And the cool thing is the GB3, which is if you have 3 or more grade 2s or greater units on your when your opponent would call from his or her hand to the Guardian Circle, he or she must call 3 or more at the same time. So this is perfect with Light and Dark Llew. The attack extension plays, it's fantastic. And yeah, it's just a way to pressure your opponent's hand and just beat them down and get rid of all their advantage. So really, really solid. I feel like 3's fine. 4 felt like a bit overkill, but maybe 2 or 3 is about right for this, right? So that's him. Then we have the 2 Twin Sword, still good. He just pluses you regardless, but he also gives you that attack extension plays if you want to go for that as well. But outside of that, I feel like you're just bouncing between either of these or anything else for that matter. Because I do play the 2 Aerial Divine Knight Altmile, the old G unit, and I also play the 1 Gancelot. Now these are good options just because they get around damage to deny. So these are skills that you can use without Counterblast. But the problem with it, of course, is that your Dragon can also be used without Counterblast. So it's a bit like if and are, really, if you're actually going to go into these. But they're there. Gancelot is at least viable just because he's got the continuous skill in the G-Zone for the resist for Blaster Blade. So that's always relevant. And he's a saver unit, so you can use it with Exceed skill when you stride on it. So that's that. Then we have the Agnos. I put Agnos back in here. I feel like he's more usable in this deck just because you typically want to be calling most of the cards in your hand to the field. But again, like always, it depends on what you have. So I feel like Agnos is just a bit more useful in this deck, right? Because in Alfred, it's a combo-based deck. You want the correct pieces in the correct place. You don't just want to like chuck everything onto the field and hope for the best. But with this deck, I feel like it's more... It has more opportunity, right? It has more opportunity to do better. So that's that. And then you can just stride for free for the rest of the game, which means you can use your grade 3 blasters wherever you want to, right? So that's cool. And then we have the Ultima, of course, for just an alternative finisher. I think that's one thing I like about this deck a lot, is that there's a lot of avenues in terms of finishes. We have the Flogals, we have the Messianic, we have the multi-attack aspect, we have the Ultima, and then just the generic win con being the Crystaluster. There's lots of avenues you can go down in terms of trying to win the game, which I think is one of the fun things about this deck. But again, once again, this is all theory-based, so I don't know if this deck actually works, but I feel like it's a cool structure, right? And you can sort of build from it, right? So there you go. So we'll move the G units to the side. So that is the G units. And then we have the G Guardians, which I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's exactly the same as my Alfred one. We have the Raktom, we have the Dismal, we have the Barcgal, the Iseult, and the 2 Merrin G-Guards for that deck PG, or just guarding in general, because since we have standard grade 1s in the deck, we can make a really big 30k shield with this and get some pretty good guards going. And also it's even better because we have Majesty Lord, so we can get even higher numbers when it comes to defending ourselves, which is pretty nice. So yeah, that is it for the deck overall. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Like I said, guys, if you have suggestions for the deck, feel free to drop it in the comment section. I am more than open to, criticism about the deck or any, like, advice about the deck, any lines of play you feel like I've just missed out on here. I don't know. Tell me in the comment section, because I'm open to figure out if this deck could be constructed a bit better. But I feel like I've done a good enough job with, thinking about my options, thinking about what players I have and how I can synergize things together. That's why I sort of tried to include the Livarot to get around the counter blast and eye players. But yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys, anyway. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck. I'm thinking about doing an update for Altmile, but I'm not too sure if I want to wait for like the Daigo set to come out, because there's actually some cards in that are pretty nice for Altmile. So I don't know. Because I don't want to do a profile for it and then like, you know, a month or two later there's like a new version, right? So I'm probably gonna wait for that at the minute. And yeah, I think the next thing that I'm looking at doing is either another topic video, maybe in December, maybe. That's just an idea. And then, of course, we have Gurgit in December anyway. So, yeah, Gurgit will be coming to us in December. So, we'll look forward to that. But, yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And, yeah. And also, I will be away from the channel for a little bit, because I do have the new WoW expansion coming out really soon. I think it's in, like, 3 days or something, Shadowlands. So, I'm actually going to be playing that for a bit. So, yeah, don't expect any videos until like around somewhere in December at least, when I think about doing one. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video. So like always, guys, take care, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.